Hello chess players, this is Chess Suriname and welcome to another chess educational video. In this video we will cover rook endgames and this is known as the Lucena position. So here we have the white pieces. I urge you to try this out for yourself. Keep in mind our pawn moves this side, we have a rook, our opponent has a rook, and of course the kings are on the board. So here if you have the white pieces, what would you play? Alright, if you set rook to g1, that is correct, and we will give this check first. Here, black has several options. We'll cover all of them, of course, and we'll start off by playing. We'll start off with king to f6. If black king is on f6, then you just play your king to f8, and if our opponent plays rook to a8, we just promote, and after he takes, we have the rook and the king to work, and this is winning for white, assuming you know how to give checkmate with the rook, which I'm sure you are familiar with. What happens if he doesn't play king to f6, but he plays king to h7? Then we will play rook to g4. I should mention, we can't just play your king here, because black will just give us checks, and you can't make progress here. If the king comes too close, for example here, this is just a drawn. So the main idea here is to remove our king so our pawn can promote, but we need to remove our king and use the rook as cover. I hope you understand what I said. Alright, so here you play rook to g4. You'll understand why. Rook to g4 is played. And let's assume black just plays a random rook move. Then you just play your king to f7. And now you see why we played our rook to g4. So after the checks, when the checks come, keep in mind to play king to f6 first. Not here, because black will just take, and then it's a draw. So king to f6, after the check, you come to e5, and now you understand why the rook needed to be on g4. Now our rook is defending the king, and the king is not in front of the pawn, so that means the pawn can push. Even after the straight, black is not in time to catch the pawn, and white will just promote. If you remember the rule of the square, I will cover this in another video, but the king is not inside of the square, so this pawn will just promote. Here you just promote, and then you give checkmate. Alright, so again, this move is very important. This is the starting position. Here you give this check. If the king goes to h7, you play rook to g4. Alright, the same can be said if the king goes to h8. You just play rook to g4, and we're making sure that the black king is 2 steps from the pawn. So that's why you play your rook to g4, and also to create the umbrella. If black gives side checks here, you just go king to f7. You're threatening to promote, and you're also threatening for checkmate. So if he plays rook to a7, for example, then you just give checkmate here. Alright, so we've covered king to f6. If the king goes to f6, you play your king here, and then you promote. And if oh yeah, there's a sideline here. If your king goes here, and the rook goes to h2, you can promote also, because after this check it looks like checkmate, but our rook can actually block. All right, back to the beginning position. So that leaves black with king to h6, and after king to h6 we play our rook still to g4, and after king to h5 we can't move our king because our rook is hanging here. We're not blundering this endgame. Here you play a rook to g7. And the idea is, after this check, you come here, and there are no checks available for black. So now you just promote this pawn. If the rook comes to h7, then you play your king to f8. And the promotion is inevitable. Even if the rook comes here, you just promote, and after the exchange, you win the rook endgame. Alright, again, so here, rook to g1, king to h6, rook to g4, and after king to h5, you play your rook to g7. Even if the king tries to attack the rook, here you can just play your king to f8. And after this check, don't blunder this, don't promote your queen, because your rook is hanging after this exchange, and this is a draw. Instead of blundering, player king to f7. And yeah, this is a one endgame. After rook to a7, trying to prevent the promotion, here you play rook to g8. And now after rook to g8, for example, the rook stays on this file, we play our king to f8. If king comes here, then you can promote, and then this is a one endgame. Alright, that's it for this episode. I hope you've learned something new, and thanks for watching. See you in the next one.